Despite all of the doom and gloom, Ruben Amorim's Manchester United have climbed within 3 points of the Champions League places, ahead of a midweek outing under those magical Old Trafford lights. We are touching on as much of the football as is humanly possible, while looking at the midfield and what we are hearing about January and summer targets. We're also looking at your questions and a little bit more. Another week has been and gone, my friends, as Manchester United have broken a London hoodoo with an impressive second-half performance and 3 points against what is a very good Crystal Palace side. I must say, it is absolutely great to read so many of your positive thoughts coming through to us at the Theatre of Red. It makes a nice bloody change from all of that usual negativity that we read, doesn't it? That said, we do still have plenty of noise from these would-be supporters who would rather continue to bemoan Ruben Amorim rather than celebrate a win on the road that has lifted this side to a 7th place standing. Elaborating on that, it's only a point off Europe. It's 3 points off the elite of European competition and only 4 behind second place. Let me stop right there because I can already feel the messages. Before I continue, just allow me to clarify something, particularly about that very last line. I am not content with Manchester United challenging for second place. This is nothing about standards or how far they have fallen at Old Trafford. This is simply me acknowledging that this is a team that finished 15th last season, and after one progressive summer window, it's just one of them, they find themselves within touching distance of what is an unlikely return to the top 4. You see, I find that far too many are hell-bent on destroying any form of positivity because all they are interested in is speaking about the bad and what isn't happening, while constantly drawing back to Amorim's overall record at the club and endlessly bringing last season into current conversations. I don't believe that last season should be erased, not at all. It should be there. Let it stand as a horrific reminder of how far this football club has fallen as a result of the mismanagement of the Glazers. Still, I have to ask you, is it really beneficial to continuously bring it up when evaluating the current campaign? Now, I ask this because I can't see how that helps us where we are today. Last season was nothing short of embarrassing, and by all means, the manager should take his portion of the blame for that. But the decision to introduce him mid-season into a squad that had not been constructed for what is his obvious tactical demands and philosophy, it was hardly going to return an immediate reward, was it? And if you're listening today and if you had aspirations of that somehow recurring, I'm sorry, I just don't know what to say to you. So from here and from this point of the podcast, do my best to focus on this season alone and form, because what we must remember when gauging form is you don't look at an entire picture. You take a period and you establish how a side is playing during that particular duration. This team were awful against Everton. They were absolutely terrible. It was soul-breaking, and there is no escaping that. But that was the sole blemish since the beginning of October. And that's in a run that returned 4 wins, 2 draws, and that solitary defeat. So it's 14 points from a possible 21 in fixtures, including Liverpool, Spurs, and a Palace side who were unbeaten in 12 at Selhurst Park before we arrived on Sunday afternoon. That first half display on Sunday, let's focus on that. It was more than a little frustrating, and you'd have been forgiven for sharing a little worry about a continuation from what we saw against David Moyes' men. But then a very good second-half performance returned to deserve 3 points at a ground that United had not won at since Marcus Rashford and Anthony Martial gave our Solskjaer 3 points. Now, how long ago that was? That was 5.5 years ago. Now, it's also worth noting that United had only managed to score 1 goal in the previous 5 visits, and that was drawing 3 and losing twice in the process. So, as I speak, you can say what you like about this team, their style under Amorim, your hopes for the remainder of the season and more. But this was an extremely important 3 points at a ground that we have struggled at massively, just as the previous 9 sides did over the course of 12 separate outings. On the day, we saw two smart finishes from Joshua Zirkzee and Mason Mount, with the latter once more highlighting his undeniable ability and the benefit that he has to his team while playing. For Zirkzee, his first goal since April in the Europa League and a badly needed shot of motivation for a forward whose future is anything but assured at this moment in time. Now, we often hear the word progress fired about, and there's plenty of debates about what that should mean for Manchester United. I don't want to get into that too heavily right now. But again, just focusing on this season alone, United have given away a lead against Fulham at Craven Cottage to draw in August. And then they also threw away winning situations against Spurs and Forest more recently. So when I consider progress for me, to come back from a losing situation at a very tough ground, where it also goes without saying that for those in Selhurst Park on the day, which I did tweet about this, the sun plays havoc on that ground. United were affected by that in the first half, and Palace were affected in the second half. It is extremely difficult to see in certain sections in there. So to come from behind and then exploit their European activity and take 3 points, well, for me, that is massive progress. And you can also elaborate on this and make a comparison with the side's inability to maximise a man advantage against Everton versus their ability to maximise rest time against Oliver Glasner's side. And we don't hear too much about this in the media because they'd rather focus on the bad, just as you and I know.
It was really important, but again, was not just the goal, even the runs behind. In the first half, he struggled on the duels, and he won some duels in the second half, and we improve a lot because of the quality of Josh in second half, and that is important for him to understand. That is not just the goal. We play better because Josh played better in the second half.
As Amorim stated during his post-match conversations, Zirkzee's goal was badly needed for the team and the player, but his performance, it offered so much more for the team dynamic. When you rewatch the game, as I'm sure many of you have, it's fair to say that he looked a little lost and lacking confidence in the opening 45 minutes. That in itself, I suppose, is understandable, given you're asking him to play a more of a Sesko-type role, advancing more forward than he is normally accustomed to. Regular listeners will know, as I've stated on numerous occasions, I've watched Zirkzee's development for years, having covered him during his time at Bologna with Breaking the Lines. And he has the technical prowess and ability when he is confident to star at the very highest level across any of the top leagues in Europe. But the one major gripe that I have had with him in England is this apparent inability to utilise that big, massive frame, natural strength that he has to dictate matters, because he's so often overpowered in critical positions, and that will inevitably cause calamity in the final third for this side. But when you factor his output against Palace, from a workman-like performance, like he had 3 ball recoveries, he won 50% of his ground duels and 55% of his aerial duels. So I'm not saying we saw the rebirth of Joshua in South London. We did see a little bit of a blueprint of what he is capable of in this team when he's confident, and more importantly, when he's singing off the same hymn sheet as everybody else in the final third. Say what you will, but that can only be beneficial in moving forward should he remain at the club. It's important to recognise that, and I always will. And as pleasing as it was, the sight of a fit again Lisandro Martinez, well, that was truly wonderful. And the recognition that he got on the ground, it was befitting a player of his cult status. Naturally, he's going to take more time to get ready to feature from the off, but it can only bode well for his return and the natural ball-playing ability that he can impose on the left side of the field. I'm sure we can all agree on that. We know that his injury was atrocious from a personal perspective, but the damage that it caused Amorim's side and the setup at the time, it was absolutely massive and forgotten by so many. He was standing out as a starring feature in the build-up and also in the transition, as well as reclaiming his form in defence. Naturally, given the recent comments from Ruben regarding the importance of bolstering our left side to match the growing power of the right, you look at somebody like Leach coming back and it looks fantastic. But it is only right to recognise what was an impressive showing from Diogo Dalot. It was one of his best in a very, very long time. And also that of Luke Shaw. I take it as a whole, what I saw on the field, what I saw afterwards, the confidence of both. They can offer a natural option on that flank. And then pending the return of Martinez, And it provides something different for the opposition to focus on, rather than all of our attacks going down the right and it becoming predictable. You look at it, Dalot was very good in that second half, both attacking and defending. And Shaw poured his blood and his sweat into the game. You have to wonder how much of it at this stage of his career is looking at Thomas Tuchel. But these are players who often attract plenty of negativity, yet they get very little in the opposite when the tide turns in their favour. And that's very similar to the manager and the lack of recognition for anything positive. All of this boils down to form, to confidence and momentum. And naturally, as we head into a perennially busy period before the pain that AFCON will supply through the absence of Bryan Mbeumo and Ahmad, key figures will need to stand up and be counted. This leads to an interesting question that I have in front of me that came into us from a listener called Kieran O'Reilly. He emailed through to editor at theatre-of-red.com. He said, as we are just in December, entering a busy period of fixtures, and then on to the second half of the season, who do I believe will stand out performance-wise from December onwards? Kieran went on to say that he has a feeling that Cunha will really come into his own, and he thinks that he could be the lift we need. Thanks a lot for getting in touch, Kieran. I have to say it was lovely speaking with you. Cunha is a superb talent, and it's hard to look past him to shoulder the weight of expectations in attack when Mbeumo and Ahmad are away. I think he has shown glimpses of what he can bring with utterly brilliant moments that have led to many feeling like he could become the modern star of the Stretford end. But he has yet to truly explode on the scene, and that's not been helped by a couple of setbacks along the way. But just like you, I think that we may see his defining period in red throughout December and January. And another man that I think will prove crucial is Mason Mount. Now, I touched on him briefly at the beginning of the show, and I can't escape how much he offers in attack with his endless work rate, his high press, and his technical ability. I just think he's the whole package when he's fit and firing. It's something I've stated for a very, very long time. Even though he's in Manchester longer than Cunha, he's in a similar situation that we have seen glimpses that have been ultimately marred by endless setbacks. That said, right now at this moment in time, he looks fitter than he has ever been since making the move. And I think both of these players can stand out during the upcoming months because I think that they complement each other with their natural intensity, their positional awareness, and their ability in the final third. We forget, because they've been on the scene for so long in the Premier League, that these are still young guys. Both are only 26 and they are yet to reach their peak years. I have a feeling that they'll enjoy orchestrating attacks alongside each other. And then with Bruno Fernandes feeding both, you end up with this delightfully technical trio of attacking players that I think can lift the burden of AFCON while also creating multiple goal-scoring opportunities throughout all of these congested months.
Those days of skipping school and football in the park, lads chasing all the girls, then heading home for dark. Those days, my friend,
The wonderful people at Manchester Mind have been supporting better mental health for all in Manchester for over 35 years. Now, I could go on about this for quite some time, but in short, they believe that everyone deserves support for their mental health needs and that we can all play a small part. So with that, enter my good buddy Barney from Red News and their upcoming campaign to support this fantastic initiative. Barney is looking to beat his December 2023 step count and get past 501,000 steps for the month. And you can join in and beat your December step count by just one if you fancy it. Regardless of whether you want to take part or not, you can still support and donate with ease. And additionally, the guys have a signed Red News piece featuring 6 of our current players: Matheus Cunha, Bryan Mbeumo, Benjamin Sesko, Matthias de Ligt, Ahmad, and Diogo Dalot. This is currently at auction. There's days still to come, and the winning bid will go entirely into the fundraiser. This is the month of giving. It's a very difficult month for many, and you, me, and everybody else has an opportunity to play a very small part. As always, I will pop everything you need into the show's bio. And if there's anything else I can help with, please do not hesitate to get in touch and ask. Another standout topic during a trip to London was the performance of Adam Wharton in the heart of midfield. Now, like Elliot Anderson and Carlos Baleba, Wharton has been heavily linked with a move to Old Trafford, and I think we can all agree he did very little to harm his cause on Sunday. On the off chance that you've never seen the boy play, it's very obvious why he's held as highly as he is, because at 21, his footballing IQ is already better than about 95% of his rivals, which is just crazy, because we're talking about a young playmaker who can transition from defence to attack with ease. He can dictate the tempo of play. He's press resistant well beyond his years. It's almost like Michael Carrick-like, and it's hard to see why any top team just wouldn't be eager to have him playing for them. Now, naturally, with great talent that he has and the ability that he has, there comes great cost, and you would be looking at an extremely large fee to get him into Old Trafford. That begs the question about who is more suited to this rebuild between himself and the aforementioned Premier League duo. And Kelly Brand got in touch shortly after the game, and she asked if we felt that Wharton's display had edged him above the other two for Jason Wilcox and co. So firstly, thank you for taking the time, Kelly. It was lovely chatting with you again. From a personal perspective, my opinion has not changed, regardless of my admiration for Wharton. I do still believe that Elliot Anderson is the player that United should move heaven and earth to sign, and I don't say that lightly. That said, I would give a limb to have both him and Wharton arrive at the club, because that would immediately propel this side into the conversation for major honours. That's just how good they are. What we saw on Sunday was an extremely confident ball-playing midfielder at comfort against seasoned competitors in Bruno Fernandes and Casemiro. Now on this, and I will stop here because let's not forget that while he was the best player on the pitch during the opening 45, he did have the elements on his side, as I've already mentioned, and he struggled to have control on the tie in the second, so it is foolish to ignore these things when we're having these conversations. For me, you have to ask the question about whether his arrival alone could transform this midfield into a title-contending one. I'm not 100% sure that it would. Whereas I believe Anderson could come in and add a more significant dynamic here, given his versatility in either end and his strengths that he has overall. This is naturally a significant decision to be made by Ineos, and it's one that will take quite a bit of spend. So, as we've said for months, the Theatre of Red is advised that Anderson has climbed above Baleba into the pecking order at Old Trafford. He is viewed as the primary midfield target. But that said, every successful club requires contingency plans, and Wharton is held incredibly high. The main factor of consideration is what I have touched upon with an ability to make the midfield their own, and who is most likely to have the greatest impact now and in the future. But then this ties into another question we received from Thomas Rasick about recent reports linking United with a move for Conor Gallagher. He got in touch on Monday evening to ask about our recent article regarding news of interest in a possible January play for the one-time Chelsea captain. What Thomas is referring to, if you didn't see it, we published on the Theatre of Red website on Monday that there is serious consideration being given to the player. Let me elaborate here, because I am lucky enough to spend ample time with many Spanish journalists, and I can accurately relay information from that side of European football. Many of the folk that we worked with for well over a year on Marcus Rashford's move to Barcelona, and they have suggested some movement regarding Gallagher in Spain. What we do know is that United made a small inquiry on deadline day in the summer about the possibility of a loan, and it was immediately disregarded. Now, Atletico Madrid did not then, and do not now, want to entertain a loan move. They were not looking to pursue a sale of Gallagher either, but a demand for a more significant role at this stage of his career has potentially opened the door. We were advised then that a bid of €40 million starting at that could have generated some traction. And this has since dropped slightly when you're factoring in the additional time that has been and gone and the requests of the player. So we've seen multiple English reports of a fee as low as £26 million. And I will tell you that they have been confirmed on my Spanish side, with the suggestion that Atleti would likely accept a bid of that value in January. Although they're not keen on a loan, we're told that they may even allow this with a mandatory obligation to purchase at the end of the deal, along with a couple of performance-related add-ons. When we consider the prospect of obtaining a 25-year-old midfielder who is far better than many are giving him credit for as little as £26 million, now, I think it's fair to say that United are interested, as any top side in England would be. You must remember, this is a player capped over 20 times for England. He's got magnitudes of experience in the Premier League, La Liga and Europe, and he's also captained Chelsea. When you factor the need to cleanse a dressing room and support the growth of so many youngsters, that is the exact mentality that you need. And for those worrying that his potential purchase could stop somebody like Anderson or Wharton, I assure you that would not be the case. United want 2 midfielders, but they also recognise the importance of recruiting in the wing-back area as well as a versatile attacking option. So that's why price, and a price as low as £26 million, would be considered. Presently, there have been no bids or advances made for Gallagher, but we're told that he is being considered, and that Amorim and Wilcox both regard him as a solid option who could affect the squad and the playing style within this philosophy. So right now there is nothing. I wouldn't rule it out, nor would I turn my nose up at the prospect of adding Gallagher to this squad. And that will bring us on to what would be the final chapter today. That is the 8 p.m. home outing against West Ham under Old Trafford lights on Thursday. Now, as we know, nothing is guaranteed in football, especially in the Premier League. But this fixture presents the opportunity to climb into the Champions League paces pending results elsewhere. But as well as that, it presents the opportunity to begin building further momentum at the football club ahead of next week's trip to low-lying Wolves. It is worthwhile noting here, it's probably more than worthwhile, it's necessary to note that recent history is not overly kind against West Ham. United have lost 4 of the previous 5 Premier League meetings, and that included a 2-0 defeat at home in May. But then this brings us back to that age-old line about form, what we discussed already. And West Ham are struggling to maintain any sort of that as they sit in 17th with 8 defeats from 13 outings, including what was a surprising defeat to Liverpool on Sunday. Ahead of the fixture, all of the reports and everything suggested is that Cunha is expected to return following what we're hearing were precautionary concussion measures. And that will beg the question about what sort of attacking lineup we will see. It's fair to say, when you look at the last couple of weeks as a whole, Mbeumo has regressed slightly in the Brazilian's absence, and you would expect that he will likely thrive in his return once more. But then what of Xerxes and Mount, and the potential implications of benching either when they have found a semblance of form? If I was put on the spot right now to select my starting 11, I would veer towards an attacking trio of Mount, Mbeumo and Cunha, and I would then ensure that Xerxes was given ample time playing off the bench. But let's be honest, while people might debate starting lineups and be aggrieved about omissions, these are good problems to have, and we should welcome competition across multiple places. But the most important thing here, we need to see a continuation of the intensity in the attacking dynamic that we witnessed during the second half in London. I can't help but feel that if that is brought from the opening whistle, West Ham will have a very difficult evening in Manchester. It's also worth noting, actually, at this stage, Reza correctly predicted the scoreline against Palace, as did Jerry against Liverpool. So I think we're getting kind of good at these things here. I will go for a 3-1 win for United, and I'll hope in the back of my mind that we can keep a clean sheet. But ultimately, I am confident of gaining 3 points, and I think we are going to see a good start from this group, because we have to. And on that, I shall say good day to you all, and thank you again for your time and the continuation of your lovely messages throughout the week. I genuinely love you all, I really do. I'd ask you to keep getting in touch via email at editor@theatre-of-red.com and across all of our socials. Drop us a like and a follow wherever you're listening. Even leave a review if you feel kind enough to do so. I am also doing my best to enhance our footprint on YouTube, so any help that you can give me over there would be much appreciated also. We'll be back next week to embrace what I hope will be more points and positivity for Ruben's Reds. So until then, you beautiful people, take care and much love.